Hey, everybody. My name is Samantha Adams. I am one of the co-hosts of the Counterpoise podcast, and we'd like to welcome you. I'm going to go ahead and allow my other co-hosts to go ahead and introduce themselves. Guys?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Malik Foster, another co-host for the Counterpoise podcast.
And I am Everett Stevenson, one of your other co-hosts as well for the Counterpoise podcast. And so today we got a really good show. One of our co-hosts is gonna get ready to go ahead and explain it to you guys. So yeah, it's gonna be a one I think that's gonna be have a real impact on how things are going in our community and just like things that we use within it.
Okay, guys. This week we're going to be discussing the word nigger and its evolution and the changes of the word, right? First we want to get into some of the history of the word
Origins too, I think
the
too.
feelings of the word. What'd you say? E?
I was gonna say origins as well because I think nigga is kind of like in the middle part of some of the word. You know what I mean? One of the most popular terms that may be used within the word, but I think we also have that like it was words that was derived from. So I wanted to kind of
Right, exactly. So
reference to that
the
as well.
origins, the meaning, and how it evolved over time to where people commonly use it now, even in different countries as well, to refer to each other due to Black American culture and the media, right? So I know Sam, you wanted to say
Yeah,
something.
I have a little bit of information that I was able to pull from the African American Registry. And pretty much what it says is that the history of the word is often traced to the Latin word niger. Now, let's just be clear. Remember, English language is based in Latin. So a lot of our words come from Latin, okay? And that word means black. This word became a noun, or also known as Negro for a Black person in English, and simply the color black in Spanish, which is negro in Spanish and Portuguese. In early modern French, Niger became Nigre and later Negress, which meant the Black woman, and was unmistakably a part of the language history. One can compare Negre to the derogatory word nigger in earlier English substitutes such as nigar, negar, and negor. That developed into the lexico semantic true version of the word in English, and it's probable that nigger with the hard er is a phonetic spelling of the white Southern mispronunciation of the word Negro. So, I mean, this article goes a lot deeper and talks about a whole lot more other stuff. But, when you're talking about it, the word nigger, Nigger, yes, we are using the N word in this. Let me go ahead and back up for a second. We are going to be using this word a lot today because that's what our topic is about. We do understand that the word is offensive. However, the reason why we are using this word is so that we can educate and give people different perspective as it relates to the word, its different uses, and why people use it and why people shouldn't use it. You know what I mean? And you go ahead and make your own decisions after, we give that information, but, it's more so to give information and perspective as it relates to the word. So that's some of the history of the word. That's just some of the history. That's literally just the grammatical aspects of the word, or what it is as a word, but it doesn't get too deep into what the meaning is. Now, the meaning, as many people know, has a whole history as it relates in that article. It does definitely get deeper into the history of it, but when you're talking about the history of the word and its uses, it does mention the southerner, the white southerner. Now, of course, we know all white southerners don't use that word, but definitely there are people that do. And so, when we talk about the word nigger with the hard er, we're talking about it in historical context as it relates to how Black folks were referred to. We were referred to as nigger. We were considered to be lazy. I don't know how you got the person doing all the work as being a lazy one. I think they just said we was lazy because we were like, we don't want to be slaves no more. But that's another story for another day. But as it relates to the word, it is highly derogatory, highly offensive, and there are many, many blacks that were lynched, and that was the last word they heard as they were being lit on fire. So some people don't understand the context of that word. They feel as though, oh, that was a long time ago. Doesn't matter. It wasn't that long ago, and people I believe that there's certain people that should not be using that word. So, I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and jump on in.
Yeah, no, I think for me, in the context of it, um, I think we got to go back and we look at it from the standpoint of, like you said, what it was originally known as. And it was used by, a lot of African immigrants that came into, who was brought to America, and it was a word of empowerment, which was to represent, like you said, the word king. And so when we
Some
look at,
niggas.
yeah, from the term niggas,
Mhm.
negus. And so when you look at it from that standpoint and understanding it to be some of the standpoints in which some people use it as in which they say like it's as a term of empowerment, most notably known in some of the more frequent days by Tupac, who originated this term, was never ignorant, always getting, or excuse me, never ignorant, getting goals accomplished. And so he looked to change the term of the word nigga and the negative connotation in which it had, and shown that it could have great connotations as far as you could take the power out of the word, even the variation of what was attempted to be the word, and still gain the power from that. And the one reason why I wanted to reference that is because I think it's important that you understand how to be able to take something that's meant to be harmful, take something that's meant to break you, take something that's meant to try to tear you down, and find a way to bring beauty in that. Because and in life, that's just how things are going to go. There's going to be situations where you're going to get taken down. People are going to take steps to kind of like knock you down. But if you can learn how to find a way to grow within that, if you can learn how to find a way to have a perception in which you don't see it as what someone is intended to be, you then begin to be able to have that power over that, so that you don't, one, allow it to affect you to whether it is intended to be affected by those who may be trying to use it from a negative standpoint, and two, that you can now use it and make it to like the colloquial term in which we had, hey, what's up, my nigga, or whatever the term may be that people will use, or that's my nigga, or whatever it is, however it was, where it was used in a way in which people will use it for empowerment. So those are like kind of my basic views on it. In regards to other people using it, it's not necessarily something that's preferred, but I feel as though, like, if it's a person that feels like they identify with the understanding of, the lifestyle of those who maybe feel like they were under oppressed in a sense, then they may feel like they get treated as such, and feel like the term applies. So that's in that context. But
But
again,
hold on, are you referring to the hard ER, or are you referring to it
no,
as a
the
term
GA.
with the A at the
The
end?
GR is definitely derogatory, and it's meant to be taken in that term, in that
Right.
context. That term has never been used as a way of endurement or anything like that.
Yeah,
It-
that's not an
it's,
term of
yeah,
endearment at all.
yeah, it's never been used like that. You know what I'm saying? Um, and honestly, even within the community, when people use that term, like, that's a crazy, you know what I'm saying, like that, like, that they're like replying, they're referring to like a certain type of individual when that's being made, and they're using that context and they say that in a negative way, and so that one's not cool for nobody to use, But even on the other end, I know, I don't necessarily feel like it's something that needs to be used, but if people feel comfortable using it, that's their business. You know what I mean? If they happen to offend someone around them, then they have to be aware of that and whatever goes with that. So I think, you need to be careful, especially if you're not someone from within the community that's using that type of term analogy around others who maybe feel like they that do hear that, who could take offense to it. But I mean, that comes with anything, and nowadays, you can say anything and people can be offended by it. So
I kind of juxtaposed the word the nigger and the nigga, the hard er, the ga, with kind of like the Holocaust situation. If you're not from that community, that group, don't, just stay away from it. I think that's the best approach here, given the history of everything, because it's a very sensitive topic within the Black community, especially Black Americans. Like, not so much Africans or other Blacks across the different groups, because they just see our culture. They see like it's a cool thing to do, to say amongst each other. Even when Africans say it, they kind of say it um, like a white person would say it. Like, it's just awkward. It's not right when an African from Africa says it, and they have no cultural ties. They didn't grow up here, so it's like kind of foreign to them. So I think if you're not part of the Black American culture here in the United States, and you're not a descendants of American slave here, or one a Black American here, then I think you shouldn't really use the term. You should stay away from it. I think a lot of people just joke around with it, but you know, since we're talking about the history of it real quick, it's very interesting how Black Americans really changed the word from a negative thing to a term of endearment, right? So you say it to your friends, or it's just like a joking way. It's like a socializing thing instead of a term of hate. So throughout history, Black Americans have turned some of the negatives into positives, right? So even throughout this time, since it's Black History Month, all the great inventions that Black Americans have come up with to benefit the country and help build the country, even though their rights were restricted and stuff. It's just another example of how Black Americans have turned negatives into positives, and I think that really is symbolized in the word nigger and nigga, right? So that's some of my thoughts on the history. Sam, I believe you had a clip that you wanted to show us.
Yeah, I do. It goes more to who can use the word. But before I get into that, I wanted to address something that you guys both said. I think that it's interesting. I think that it's important, number one, to recognize what they're two different words, right? When they Black folks in America have taken one word and literally changed it into a different word. But that new word is isolated in a sense as to who can use it, right? And so, and that goes more so to what Everett was saying, like, if people feel that they have been a part of that struggle, then they should be able to, and marginalize such, but I don't think white people should be able to use that word. I mean, I know that may sound crazy, but I don't care if it's the hard ER, the A, the AH, the N, however you want to flip it. I just don't think so, because number one, it's too close. And number two, there's just too much history attached to that word, regardless of which variation that you're
I got one
referring
for
to.
you, Tim. It makes me looking back feel some type of way about it, like how they do about critical race, in my personal opinion. And so,
What do you
like,
mean
yeah,
by that?
meaning like if you can't look back and see how certain things were done in history, then I don't need you using words that and that has a historic terminology that would
Right.
make people look back and think negatively about their folks. So that's
Right.
that's the understanding that it is. Just like critical race makes you and your people feel uncomfortable, then don't use the word then, because that makes us feel uncomfortable. Just like, you know, saying other words makes other races or religions feel uncomfortable, or
Right.
sexual creeds feel uncomfortable.
Right.
So yeah, that's where we're going with that as far as how I look at it.
Right. And words are important, right? So, you know, we talk about it all the time, how myself, Everett, and Malik are all attorneys. We are wordsmiths. That's part of the job of being an attorney. And words are very, very important. So just know, like, if we're all sitting around talking, chit-chatting, we may just be a little bit more relaxed in the way that we speak. But best believe when we're talking to the masses and when we're speaking to the masses, we are very particular about our words. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, you know, things may get taken out of context. We try to make sure we clear things up, but we are particular about our words because words are important. And any meaning that you have that's attached to it is gonna mean something. You're putting stuff out into the atmosphere. And for the very reason that you just gave, E, that's definitely one of the reasons why I don't believe that, you know, white folks should use the word nigger, or however, whatever context in which you intend on using it, because it's just, it has so much negative connotation to it.
I think it's a lot of surrounding it. So I think it's just best to stay away from it, because the current state of the United States, right? There's a lot of racial tension. So if a white person is really throwing around that word, it's just not going to look right. So when white people do certain things in this country, and black people disagree with it, it's like that racial tension and vice versa. So as opposed to maybe if it's in a different country, they may be more based off of
I don't
class.
think it really flies in other countries either. Like if you go to England and you're out there using that word, I don't think that that's going to fly too heavily either there,
Yeah, I
right?
don't think
Because
it's
they
gonna
have their
fly
own racial
either.
tension.
I don't think it's gonna fly either. White people using it in a different country against black people in a different country outside the United States either. I just think when it's communicated in this particular country, I think it's just so much trauma surrounding it, and because due to the racial tensions, due to the history of this country, due to enslavement and mistreatment of Black Americans here.
But there's also an argument, a school of thought where it says nobody should use the word. Not, I don't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, wherever you come from, nobody should use it because of the history that's related and attached to it. And I mean, if everybody stays away from the word, like, you know, some white folks try to justify, like Joe Rogan, for example, and this is going to be my segue into the clip. It's a 3.5 minute clip, but I'm gonna play it anyway. Joe Rogan, for example, talks about use of the word in context, right? Unless you're talking about history, there's no context for that, for the word. You know what I mean? Not for white folks, unless you're talking about history. And even then, you still got to be mindful. If you're in school, you might want to just refer to it as an N word. But you know, when you're watching movies and stuff, you see white folks use the word all the time in slave movies like Django or 12 Years a Slave and things like that. Roots, you know, if you want to go back that far, which it makes sense, right? Because you want people to get the full emotion of exactly what's going on, to capture what's going on or what was going on in that time. But at the same time, like you're not supposed to be out here making jokes talking about black folks and calling them niggers. It's just not, it just ain't it. So as the Breakfast Club had a comedian on a while ago. Her name is, hang on for a second. Her name is Ada Rodriguez. She's a Puerto Rican woman. And she's a comedian. And she was asked about the statements made by Joe Rogan. Can you guys see my screen?
And this is what I've been saying. When people ask me about Dave Chappelle and they ask me about Joe Rogan, because they do in these interviews, I always say, stop asking women of color who get paid less than everybody about the most powerful people in comedy, when the consequences for us speaking out against them are so dire because they are at the top of the food chain and we just trying to eat. And so I think Joey Diaz is my friend, and he's part of that Joe Rogan crew. And I know Joey Diaz's heart, and he shows up for me. And if I call him tomorrow and say somebody tried something, he'll show up for me. I don't know Joe Rogan, but I can't speak on behalf of Black people and what's offensive to them. And I think that many of us who are Black adjacent, I claim my Blackness. I'm Afro Latina, Afro Indigenous, whatever the people say I could call myself this week. Because they tell you who you can and can't be. But I think that we as people of color, like me as a Puerto Rican woman, I have no right to tell Black people what they can and cannot be offended by. And that's where I stand. And so when all these people are showing up saying, "Oh, he didn't mean it. He don't be offended because he said it this." I have no right to tell Black people about not to be offended about a word that is so connected to so much trauma and so much pain. And I think it would be disrespectful of me to tell Black people it's cool. He's not like that. I don't think that's okay. So I don't. And I think that Joe Rogan has to deal with the consequences of what he says, just like everybody else does.
That's real. I mean, it's interesting with the N word too, though, because it's like you grew up hearing Carlin use it in comedy specials. You grew up seeing Larry David use it on Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's a lot of people. I've heard people use it in like the Young Turks use it in context when they're reporting things. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know.
You know what's funny is that I was having a discussion with this Jewish comedian who dropped it, and I said, "Hey, I said, don't say that word around me." And we had this whole exchange, and it was here in New York. And I told him, I said, "What if somebody was making jokes about the K word, right?" And he was like, "Oh, but the K word isn't funny." And I was like, "Yeah, the N word isn't funny to some Black people either.
Mm-hmm.
Some Black people don't want to hear that word. And at the end of the day, I don't sit around having wet dreams about using that K word. Like, I'm not like, ooh, let me say a word that is so connected to little babies being burned and incinerated. Like, ooh, I can't wait to say that word." I don't know what's the fascination of some white people to want to say that word.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why they're so pressed by really wanting to say that word. Like, what is it that you get out of it? I don't want to say any other words that are connected to people's pain. There's so many other words.
I wish we never turned it into a term again.
Yeah, but
then it would be no debate.
Well, but the thing is, and I'm with was it Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm of the school of thought that is the one thing that Black people own that belongs to them only, and that they should be able to use.
I don't know if we own it though.
But you do. That you've taken it, you've redefined it, it's become a term that white people shouldn't have to use because they took it and they gave it a definition of power and said this belongs to us. Nobody should use the word that's not connected to the history of the word. And this is what I've been saying when people ask me about this.
So I think that was incredibly interesting, her perspective. And I think, to be completely honest and offering full candor, I believe that more people should have that attitude about it. And like I said a few minutes ago, Charlemagne kind of touched on the school of thought that even some black people shouldn't use it too, right? And a lot of that has to do with the connotation with the word and some of the issues that come about with the use of it. If you're not, and so there are many people that believe that if you're not using it in context, and you shouldn't use it. Even still, you gotta be mindful about how you're using it in context and if it's really necessary, because there's so much attached to it. I mean, as it refers to the term of endearment, I think that right there, I think that's an individual thing, and I think that an individual thing as it relates to Black folks, right? And I think that people should be able to make that decision and choose wisely. Don't do it just out of ignorance. Do it based on, knowing your history and knowing more and more about the word. Because other Black folks may get offended. I know people that don't like the word. And so Black folks that don't like the word, but then I know people that use that word every couple seconds. So, I think it's important. Guys?
Yeah. So my thoughts are that I kind of agree with her, right? that other groups of people don't have a right to tell us how we feel about our past traumas, especially when it's surrounding that word because of the historical context of it. And you know, I also, she brought up a good point about the fascination that white people have with the word, and that stems from the racism, right? Oppression, right? The control, the dominance of everything. It's like, oh, we can't control this, we can't dominate this, we can't just do whatever we want and get our way. I think that's really what it's about when it comes to white supremacists and white supremacy. So I think that's what's the contributing factor when she's like pondering like why are white people so fascinated about it. I think that's what it is, and it's just something that they're not really allowed to do openly, so they can say it secretly but not openly, so it kind of hurts them. At least they used to be able to talk to black people any way they wanted to, but they can't, so it's very frustrating for the white supremacists. So I think that's really what it is. That she was mentioning there, and she made an interesting point also about the comics, right? How they're at the top of the food chain. I don't know if she was trying to take a little slight at blacks who are at the top of comedy, but I think she was more so saying, hey, they're on top of the game. I know that using the N word is funny, and other comedians want to capitalize on black culture, but they have to have their own thing. I think that's a good point to point out that the other comics have to have their own thing and use their own skills and talent to be at the top. That's what they want to do. Uh,
Well, yeah, let me jump in. I think to the last
mhm.
point you made, I think when she was referencing those two being on top of their game, I don't necessarily know, Joe Rogan is considered to be a comedian. But I
Oh, she was. I think she was talking about comedians, like, right? I don't
right,
Yeah,
know.
but
which
I think
I
what she
think
was
what she was
referring to
trying to
Dave
I
say.
don't think she was talking about Joe Rogan with that.
yeah, I think she was referring to like Dave Chappelle as a comedian that uses the word and
Yeah,
as juxtaposed to uh
other white comics or other
yeah,
national.
like I
Okay.
said,
Or
as
just other comics in general who are not at the
another
top.
platform.
Right.
Yeah, like you said, or if a Seinfeld or somebody like that used it, that would be a little bit of a different. And we seen that with what's his face, the dude that was on Seinfeld, and he got in some trouble for using the word, because he got what was the funny guy, whatever.
I don't a Kramer.
Kramer, yeah, thank you. He was canceled so long ago that it's almost people can forget the name, but in regards to him, and we seen it happen from not only just him to we seen it happen with Steve Ballmer, was it the former no that's the new owner of the Celtics, is it not? What was the guy who had to sell not the Celtics but the Clippers, the guy who had to sell the Clippers? He had his phone calls, conversations.
Donald Sterling.
Oh,
Donald
Donald
Sterling.
Sterling,
yeah,
yeah,
Donald Sterling.
Ballmer purchased it afterwards, but Mr. Sterling, who had who was quoted in a private conversation referencing it, which is I think some of the same thing that we feel like we're looking at currently with the mindsets that we have within the NFL currently, and the flack that it's been catching with Mr. Flowers' case and some of the allegations that he's making in his claims. So we know that this is something that's been a part of American history, and the usage of it, and the meaning for it to be something to be damaging to individuals. But to me, is one of the things that I feel like, just one of the things that I feel like has that effect on when you're black, and it's one of the things that you have to come through. That I think when we look at it, you say that you don't get a chance to run from these things in life. Like, life is, you have challenges that you have to face, and things that kind of constantly will remind you of where you are and what you are. And so as you continue to move forward in life, knowing that even still, even though people maybe feel this type of way, even though people might want me to be down, even though they're trying to hurt me, even though they feel comfortable talking kind of crazy, if you got that fortitude and that hunger of your great grandparents and everyone else and your ancestors, you're gonna keep fighting through on things. And even if that means to let certain individuals know, hey, don't get that comfortable when you're around me, to reference me in such a term, or if that means that, you know, you just make sure that you do whatever you need to do to be able to try to find a way to make it in society and survive. Those are all elements that was needed from our ancestors in order for us to be here, and it's the same thing that we have to employ in our day-to-day living. There's a lot of people who maybe have to suffer through listening to people at the jobs that casually drop those words. People who may be in management positions that may casually drop it, and they kind of have to just on a slick like act like everything was cool, or that they didn't hear it, or that they don't take it as such. And then there's other things that even if it's not, you know, that offensive word as such as the nigga or nigger, but there's just other little words that has been used to kind of, you know, excuse me, to demean rather black people. So I'm not gonna get into naming them, but it's just that, you know, my thing is again, you have to be able to say, even when you get, you know, stuff thrown at you, you got to be able to make it and turn that into lemonade. And I think that's one of the reasons why I am proud of being able to see how, in some senses, our culture was able to say, you know, well, when they give you, you know, lemons, how to make lemonade out of it. And so, where something that was meant to be bitter and meant to be hurtful, you were able to make it something sweet for yourself, because that's all you can do is deal with what you have and make that work for you. Everything else that you're doing, you know, you got a good effort at it, but at the end of the day, you can only work with what you have. And if all you have is people that's trying to use that and trying to use that to try to get into your psyche, when you can turn around and make it something different, I think that makes you more resilient. That makes you more stronger. And I think ultimately for me, that's what I want to say. The overall message behind this word and the lesson should be behind it is that, you know, don't take something that's meant to harm you and play into that fold. Even if it is a harmful, offensive thing, it only can hurt you if you allow it to hurt you. So, you know, understand it for what it's supposed to be. Understand that it's not necessarily right that it's done that, and then understand how you have the power to be able to use certain things and to be able to make it your own in that regards. But it doesn't mean that you have to. I think this is a situation in which, you know, we did what we had to do within this situation because the word was constantly being used. But today's terminology in today's world, we don't necessarily have to be subjected to being called certain names. And so therefore we don't necessarily have to deal with certain issues like that, or we should not have to deal with certain issues like that if willingly.
Right. So just to piggyback off of something that you said that stood out, if you hearing that word at work, somebody don't know what don't use that word at work. I don't care which version of the word, because that is an HR call every single time. You know what I'm saying? And so, and the last thing you want to do is behave in ways that could get you to lose your job and make it hard for you to get another one. Because you don't want to be, you know, categorized as somebody that likes to use offensive language. And so just be mindful of that. That's just free common sense advice. You know, there's no legal nothing attached to that. Just don't do it. But I did want to also mention how there's a school of thought that of people that believe that certain groups should not be allowed to use that word other than white people, right? They believe that if you are not Black, meaning if you are Latino or Hispanic,
Yeah,
if
like
you are,
adjacent, like she said, what is that?
right, like she said, like adjacent, if you're Asian, if you're biracial, if you're any of those things, that you should not be allowed to use that word. There are definitely people out there that feel that way. You're on mute, Everett. You're on mute.
Or grew up impoverished. Like a lot of times people try to equate poverty with blackness.
Yeah,
Right. And that
with black.
people really gotta understand. Growing up in poverty is not the same struggle as being Black. You see what I'm saying? Although there are many Black folks that grow up in poverty, that struggle is not the same struggle, because guess what? You could grow up in a well-off neighborhood area, whatever, your family could make money and be Black, and you still can relate to Black issues. Why? Because being Black is not the same thing as being broke,
Yeah,
right?
it
Black
has nothing
people
to
are,
do with your class.
right.
Your
My Blackness is
skin color.
not my class. My Blackness is my nationality. I hate saying race because I feel like we're all humans and we're a member of the one race. That's a human race, unless you are from another planet and you are an alien. But my nationality, my Blackness is my nationality. What my tax bracket is my class. And so, and just like my gender, so the way I am treated as a woman is not going to be the same way as I am treated as a Black person. And that is not going to be the same way I'm treated as whatever tax bracket I fall in. People have to be very clear and understand that those are different, very, very, very different categories. And even the law treats them differently. You see what I'm saying? Or the law treats them very differently. Class is not going to be as protected as gender, and gender is not going to be as protected as race when you're talking about things that are going on in law. And also, too, one thing that I always found interesting about the law, when you're talking about freedom of speech and how people make that argument, I can say whatever I want. First of all, no, you can't. There's always limits to everything you say. And then when you're talking about things like fighting words, right? And whether or not they're protected, by the law, the word nigger is not considered a fighting word. And my personal opinion is that it should be, because it's an easy way of getting the brakes beat off of you by using that word, and you are not a person that should be using it. So I think I just wanted to make sure I made those couple of little tidbit points. And I know we have a couple of things. I don't know
Yeah, I
if you
just
guys
have
want.
one little quick point. Real quick, I agree with both my co-hosts here, Everett and Sam. I just wanted to reiterate the point that I made earlier about how Black people turn the negative into a positive with the whole word, the N word, right? So that's the beauty of it, turning the negative and positive. Whether we should get rid of it or not, like the clip of the Breakfast Club, I think that we, who are other people that decide that? I think that's up for Black people to decide as a group whether they want to continue to use it or not. And I'm perfectly fine with either way. I don't think that's what's holding our community back in any way of progressing at all. So I think whether it stays or goes, it's fine. It just, I think the behavior when you're saying the word, or the contents and context of when you're using the word, is more important than just you actually using the word itself. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give my final thought. Be careful with the word if you're going to use it. And if you're white, I think you probably should just leave it alone. Stay away from it. It saves you, keeps you. I don't care if it's in a song. I don't care if it's in a movie. I don't care. Just stay away from it. Unless, you're a racist and that's what the word you want to use. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if you use that word and you are not a racist and you're using it in the context of a song, you think that you got a pass to use it, whatever, people gonna think you racist. And then that is a scarlet letter that you do not want etched on your forehead. So just stay away from it. And then as it relates to it being a term of endearment amongst Black people, this may sound kind of matter of fact, but I think if Black people want to use that word, that's their business. And I think that Black people have the ability and authority and all of that other kind of good stuff to make that decision. So, that's my final thought on the word. Just understand the history of it. And if you don't like it, stay away from it, but don't tell Black people what to say. Because I think that we have the ability to be able to use that word just based on the history that and the traumas that are attached to it, especially because we've changed that word. You know what I'm saying? So because it's a new word and you can't stay away from the new word too. I just think that that's just my opinion. Anybody else with their final thought?
Yeah, I already kind of said my final thoughts about it, but I'll Everett, you got anything? Or
No, I've spoken on this issue and said how I felt about that.
okay, I'm just gonna hop right into our Black Business of the Month here. Once again, guys, you should see a little something on your screen here. The Mad Millionaire, it's a YouTube channel. She talks about passive income, Toro expert about Toro things. If you want to rent out your vehicles to other people and try to make some passive income, she's really good with that. Credit repair, help you fix your credit, get that credit in the 700s as well. So check out the Mad Millionaire. And also there's a Facebook group for businesses. If you want to network in there, the Global Wealth Network on Facebook. You can tell her Counterpoise podcast sent you, Malik Foster sent you. So, check that out. Appreciate that. And I also have the motivational minute to say to you guys as well. I think this is a good one. Let me read it to you guys. I think it's the mark of a great player to be confident in tough situations by John McEnroe. And that quote I found pretty interesting for this topic because, the N word is a tough situation for both sides, right? Black people, due to the past trauma, trying to turn the negative into a positive, and also the other groups of people like, hey, can I use this? Is it too sensitive? I don't want to offend. So a great person would know to be confident and try to be diligent and respect the other group of people, in this case, Black Americans, on the use of the word and just staying away from it. I think that's the best approach in this situation. So that's it for the motivation minute for you guys.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about our Black Book of the Month. It's The Destruction of the Black Civilization, Great Issues of Race from 4500 BC to 2000 AD by Chancellor Williams. Remember, this book is also got an audio book. You can purchase it on Amazon. You can also listen to it on YouTube. It's a great book if you want to know more about history, Black history. And when I say Black history, I'm talking about before slavery. And it's not just about inventors and things like that. It's definitely about all of the things that have taken place from 4500 BC. So check it out. It's a really, really good, informative, and educational book. And it just has a vast amount of information as it relates to Black folks, starting in Africa, and our relationships with other nations in this world. So with that being said, y'all, it's been real. We appreciate you guys tapping in with us. Make sure you tap in with us every week, twice a week, right here. Make sure you check in on Wednesday for What's Up Wednesday at 8:30 on Instagram. And if you're watching this, you know what it is right now as far as the weekend is concerned. So you'll also see our socials posted up. And that's it. Thank y'all. We love y'all. And thanks again for tapping in. Peace.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Peace.
Yeah.